Do you remember the first time Silent Hill creeped you out? I sure do. And hot take, Silent Hill 1 is one of the scariest games of all time and doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. So I replayed Silent Hill 1 recently, and it kinda struck me how many creepy moments there are throughout the game. And it made me think back to how genuinely dreadful it felt the first time playing Silent Hill. There are so many moments that just blew me away with how creepy and disturbing they were, and a lot of these moments came back to me during this playthrough. And that inspired me to make a list of my personal top 10 creepy moments in Silent Hill 1. So in this video, I'll be ranking these moments, and take a stroll down memory lane and talk about how I felt encountering each moment for the first time. So without further ado, let's get on with the list. Number 10. Doghead Basketball. So this is one of those moments that happens pretty early on and sets the tone for the entire game. After leaving the cafe, the player is free to roam the streets to find the 3 keys for Eclipse, and the streets are pretty chaotic at this point, with groaners and air screamers constantly on the attack. But the vibe shifts once the player goes through the gate in the alley where the key of Woodman is waiting. The ambience becomes eerily quiet as you're confronted with a brutal scene, a severed dog head resting in a pool of blood, right underneath a basketball hoop that also has blood smeared across the backboard. Someone, or something, was here, playing a game, having fun, deriving pleasure from the aftermath of a cruel and savage killing of an innocent animal. And maybe I do this subconsciously, but I think you can judge how disturbing the theme of a game narrative will be based on how animals are treated in the game. Usually pets are off limits, but if a game is willing to show dead cats and dogs, especially in such a brutal fashion, it just kinda shows that nothing's really off the table, and you're not sure how far the story will go to disturb you. Number 9. Graffitied Room. So in contrast to number 10, this takes place towards the end of the game, and there's a lot of build up towards this moment, so let me give you some more context. You're in Nowhere, which is a lot of rooms from the previous areas of the game, and one of those areas happens to be the hospital basement, which is already one of the creepiest areas in the game. I remember feeling so overwhelmed when I first played this section of the game, especially without having a map to keep your bearings. The hospital basement music has a very eerie, almost relaxing tone that gradually becomes more shrill and almost unbearable, adding more tension as Harry encounters bizarre objects in rooms that shouldn't be there, all while avoiding inexplicable monsters that are difficult to comprehend. The rooms here just don't make any sense or have any logical orientation. You really don't know what you're going to encounter every time you open a new door. And that's when you finally enter the graffiti room. The walls are covered in writing, with a mix of eye drawings and very unsettling scribbles, and the specter of young Alessa whimpers under a table before vanishing into thin air. I think what creeped me out the most about this room is just how it caught me off guard. I really wasn't expecting to see an empty room with such jarring graffiti, and even more disturbing is that, at least to me, it felt like these scribbles were something a normal child could draw to express their feelings or something, but they feel even more bold and passionate to reflect the intense trauma young Alessa must have felt. And what struck me in particular were the eyes. Alessa must have sensed that people were always watching her and judging her, and now, those are Alessa's eyes that are watching Harry's every move. Number 8. The mall monitors.
Where are you?
Cheryl!
This was my first inkling that, hey, maybe everything's not going to be okay at the end of this. When I first played the game, I always expected to reunite with Cheryl at some point before the end. That was until I saw her on the mall monitors. There's something about the way she violently shakes like she's being possessed by something, or more accurately, losing herself to something. You can see Alessa flash on the screen a few times, as well as flashing images of the Order and other bizarre symbols. I remember thinking that some evil force took control of Cheryl at this point. In my first playthrough, I remember this feeling of tension right from the start of the game. Your daughter is out there somewhere, alone, surrounded by these monsters. I felt compelled to find her as soon as possible. The more time passes, the more I felt a sense of dread that she's still out there. Even when Cheryl calls Harry on the blue phone in the school, I still got the impression that she must be somewhere nearby, and there's still hope finding her. That's why the mall monitors creep me out and gave me this sinking feeling that maybe it is too late to save her. Number 7. Sybil Turns. This moment might be a little more tragic than creepy, but to me, I was still creeped out by the fact that no one is safe in the game. To me, Sybil has a grounded, level-headed persona and represents a pillar of reason and reality in the game. She reacts to the environment around her how any normal person would. She's not babbling about some cryptic nonsense like Dahlia, or acting odd like she has better things to do like Dr. Kaufman.
Well, I'd better be going.
She represents a real person. That's why when she got possessed, it felt like the last bastion of sanity left the game. And I don't know about you, but on my first playthrough, I didn't know anything about the red liquid. So naturally I thought your only option was to kill her. Which is what I think a lot of players thought in their first playthrough as well. And it's pretty ironic given her warning in the beginning of the game.
And don't go blasting me by mistake. Got it?
Yeah, thanks.
That's why Sybil turning into an enemy was so jarring and creepy. Her odd bodily movements and sudden aggression towards Harry was a complete shift in her demeanor. Silent Hill turned a person we knew and trusted into one of the creepiest boss fights in the game. Number 6. The First Alley.
What is this?
This is a brilliant introduction to Silent Hill, and it completely caught me off guard when I first played the game. We follow right behind Cheryl through a gate in the alley, only to find a bizarre carcass with blood splattered everywhere. Blood splatter everywhere. We then follow a winding path through a narrow alleyway, and this part legitimately made me feel nauseous when I first played it. The camera movement is so disorienting and just made me feel incredibly uneasy, but it gets much worse. Daylight saving suddenly starts, and we're left to navigate the dark alley with only a lighter. We then hear the squeak of a spinning wheelchair, and see a bloody hospital gurney. Why are these things here? We're then forced to follow the bloody trail as the music crescendos to a climax, where we're confronted with a hanging corpse, and locked into an unwinnable battle with Grey Children or Mumblers. I still vividly remember the panic of not being able to open the gate. I eventually succumb to the monsters, and then I think of a game plan of how I can possibly escape next time I load the game. But then, Harry wakes up in a cafe. The game's not over? I realized then that this was the kind of game that has complete control over you, and from this point forward, you have to forget about any normal gaming conventions and just go along for the ride, no matter where the game takes you, or how creepy it gets. Number 5. Lisa Turns. This is another moment where a beloved character is corrupted by the forces of Silent Hill, but this time, we learn that Lisa had already died before the events of the game, and that Harry's actually been talking to a specter, or a ghost form of Lisa that's been trapped in the other world this entire time. When I first played the game, Lisa was actually one of my favorite characters. She has a good heart, and she's a character you can really sympathize with. Even though she's scared, Lisa tries to help Harry with information on the town, or offer clues to where Cheryl might be, but it always seemed kind of weird that she never left the Otherworld examination room. Even when Harry asks her to come with him, she refuses. Then, in nowhere, Lisa realizes that she's the same as them, meaning the other monsterized staff of the hospital, and with this realization, Lisa begins to turn, and we're given this very sad scene where blood begins to pour from her face as she tearfully begs Harry to save her, but nothing can be done as she becomes just another familiar monster. And it really made me think, what if every nurse and doctor you encountered in the hospital had some kind of similar epiphany before succumbing to their monstrous state? And looking back on everything that culminated in this tragic moment, this cutscene left me feeling truly uneasy and creeped out. Number 4. The 3 nurses. So this is a moment that you might not expect or even know what I'm talking about, but I assure you, it genuinely terrified me when it happened the first time. So let me try to explain, because this moment has a lot of build-up and needs full context to really understand and appreciate. So for me, the moment starts when you enter the Otherworld hospital for the first time after you reach the 3rd floor men's bathroom. Once you grab the plate of turtle and try to leave the door, a sudden banging or broken glass noise breaks the quiet, unsettling music. But nothing really happens otherwise. At least not yet. Then later on in the game in Nowhere, you come across the same room. Well, almost the same. The urinals are now gone, and there's a bare pipe at the end of the room, with the key of Ophiel lodged inside. The player needs to get the pliers from the basement to get the key out. But before I leave the room, I remember the previous banging noise in the hospital, and I'm anticipating something to happen again, but nothing. So once I get the pliers from the basement, I go back to the faucet to pull the key out. And again, I'm waiting in anticipation for something to scare me, but again, nothing happens. It's like one of those moments where everything's quiet, too quiet. But regardless, I continue through Nowhere, trying to progress through the rooms from memory since there's no map, and it's important to note that right across the bathroom is the room with the birdcage, but it's still locked at this point in the game. Then later on, you get the birdcage key from solving the light puzzle on the 3rd floor. So now, key in hand, I race back to the beginning of the area where the birdcage is, trying to carefully retrace my steps so I don't get lost. Once I realize I'm at the entrance again, I go to open the door. But I can't remember exactly which door it is. Is it on the right or left? I know it's one of the two, so I open the door on the right, and 3 nurses appear out of nowhere. And my god, did my heart sink to the floor. They weren't here in any other part of the game, so for an empty room to be suddenly filled with puppet nurses was really chilling. And then, on top of that, I realized I didn't even need to be in this room. I felt like I was being punished by the game for losing my way and making one wrong turn. But I did not expect that banging from earlier in the hospital to come full circle and culminate in this startling scene. And to this day, I double check before I go into the birdcage room every time now. Number 3. The painting door. The school might be one of the scariest areas in the game, and this moment is no exception. It gives a perfect glimpse into how time and space warp between the Fog World and Otherworld to make truly unnerving moments. When I first went into the room behind the reception area, I really didn't think much of it. The only thing that stands out in this otherwise forgettable room is a creepy painting of a door with 3 windows and 2 bodies bound to the wall. Harry makes a comment that the painting is in bad taste for being inside an elementary school, which is fair. And in my first playthrough, I remember thinking that the painting was just some kind of minor object that was put there by the designers to add to the creepy atmosphere. I really thought it had no significance at the time. Then, after my first time experiencing the fully fleshed out shift into the Otherworld, I really didn't know what to expect. I thought the school was creepy enough as it was, and entering the Otherworld just felt so overwhelming. I kept thinking to myself, am I in a completely different area, or are there any remnants of the previous school I just got used to navigating? And finally, after some exploring, you come across the picture card item that kinda stands out like a sore thumb among the other playing cards. But it looks oddly familiar. So after more exploring, not really sure where I'm supposed to go, I eventually make my way to the teacher's lounge. And boom, there it is. The painting that I thought had no significance whatsoever suddenly came to life, becoming a doorway necessary to progress through the rest of the school. And it felt like then, whatever barrier is between the Fog World and Otherworld is falling apart and becoming a gateway for whatever unknown hell awaits. Needless to say, it took me a while to mentally prepare myself to go through the door. Number 2. Bathroom Cry. This part really sent shivers down my spine. It's so simple yet so beautifully done to really catch the player off guard. And because I'm not really sure what event triggers the scene, it seems like it just happens out of nowhere. I remember exploring the bathrooms previously and only saw an enemy here or there, and that's to be expected honestly. At this point in the game, you're prepared to face demonic monsters that are otherworldly, but that's what makes this moment really stand out. You don't hear anything bizarre or out of this world. Instead, you hear something human. The complete silence of the room is broken by a deep guttural sobbing that sounds like it's coming from a child. But what child could be in there? Although it's not explicitly stated in the game who's crying in the stall, there's a lot of speculation that it's a spectral version of young Alessa. And I went along with this because it made sense. But after playing through the game recently again, now I'm not so sure. Listen to young Alessa from the previous clip. And now compare that to the bathroom. The cry from the stall is much deeper and doesn't really match Alessa's higher pitched voice at other parts of the game either. Now I have no idea who or what is behind that stall, but whatever it is, there's a profound sadness in its tone that shook me to my core and made this moment one of the creepiest moments in Silent Hill for me, surpassed only by one other moment. Number 1. The 4th floor. So you probably saw this moment coming, but I just want to express how I felt when I first saw this and try to articulate why it genuinely creeped me out so much and why I put it number 1 on the list. So let me just give you a quick backstory on my first playthrough. So I just made it through Midwich Elementary and my mind was already blown by what the game was capable of at this point. I remember feeling mentally drained and almost exhausted by how tense the school section was. So I was ready for a nice lull in the story to kind of decompress, you know? So I go to the church, meet Dahlia, lower the drawbridge to Central Silent Hill, and finally make it to the next major section of the game, Alchemia Hospital. After the cutscene with Dr. Kaufman, I go through the reception area and grab the map and save my game. And even though the ambience of the hospital is pretty quiet and subdued at this point, the moment I looked at the map, I was completely overwhelmed. I saw how many rooms there were and how much exploring I had to do, and it struck me. I had to face all of this again in the otherworld version of the hospital. I genuinely felt my stomach sink to the floor, and no joke, I saved the game, and I turned it off, and didn't play for the rest of the day. I was just not ready to handle what the game was certainly going to throw at me. But the next day, I got brave again, and loaded up the save, and started my playthrough of the hospital. And I was actually kind of surprised by how relaxing it was. The music isn't really jarring, the tension wasn't there yet, it just kind of felt like I was exploring an abandoned hospital. Once I was in the basement, the creep factor started to go up with the darkness and music, but nothing that I hadn't seen or heard before. So I turned on the generator and make my way to the elevator. And I saw the first floor had already been explored with the map, so on to the second floor. And it's locked, so I go to the third and final floor. Locked again. I go back to the elevator to see where else I could go. Then you see it. The 4th floor appears out of nowhere. I remember thinking, holy shit, what is this game about to do to me? At that moment, I just knew I was about to enter the most horrifying part of the hospital, and it just felt like I was being toyed with. Not just by the game devs, but by Silent Hill itself. I didn't even make the choice of going to the other world. That choice was being made for me, and the sudden appearance of the 4th floor button marked a major shift in the game for me. That it was pointless or meaningless to try to predict what would happen next, or to try to gain control of my environment somehow. This is the moment that tells you that you can't escape Silent Hill, or what's about to happen to you. And because of this, the 4th floor was the creepiest moment in the entire game for me. So, do you agree with this list? Or whatever the hell they say on Watch Mojo. But I am genuinely curious what you think were the creepiest moments in Silent Hill 1 for you, and what moments might I have missed? What was your first reaction to some of these creepy moments? Let me know in the comments, and I really look forward to reading about your experience. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in part 2. And remember, be good to yourself.